Again, thank you so much. It's hard to tell on this screen how it works. Okay, so share screen. There we go. It is checked. Thank you, whoever said that. Okay, so the story I'm going to tell today is about a brand that was 125 years old. It was aging. People described it a little as dusty, something from their childhood that they loved and knew, but that was not really of today. So it's not going forward for some reason. There we go. Okay, so I sort of imagine people coming to presentations like this over the years, you know, a 125-year-old company. I've worked there about 4 years now, but describing it as, gee, we're having a hard time connecting with people. And that could have been Gen Zers, it could have been millennials, but when you have a brand 125 years old, it could be Gen Xers, it could be boomers, the silent generation, the greatest generation, the lost generation. You get my point. Over the years, you might have trouble connecting to people. And what do you do when people start talking about your age? Well, yes, you get a facelift. And Hershey was no different. They thought, well, we're going to update our image. And this is before my time. And I don't want to give my colleagues a hard time from before I arrived. But they did what a lot of brands do, and that is they tried to sort of attach to a relevant and timely issue. The problem is, if it's not at your core or it doesn't stand for who you are in people's minds, it's not going to work. So let's take a minute and look at this spot. As I said, I'm not here to say what they did wrong, but I do want to show you where they went to sort of update their image.
Okay, hi, Dad. We'll do that. And just, okay.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, sorry. Think about it.
Oh.
There must be higher love down in
What do you
the
think?
heart and in the stars above.
Hi, Ted. Glad you could join us. We think we're gonna like these numbers.
Bring me a higher love. Rise above.
So great use of music, topical idea that parent can't be with their kid. But I don't know about you guys, but this just makes me sad, and it doesn't make me feel like Hershey's. And also one watch out that I just have to mention. This is just a brand person's dream right here, this end card. The idea that, oh, you could use, you know, every Hershey product at the end card and convince yourself that you're covering your entire portfolio with one ad. It just doesn't work. I can't say much more than that.
Okay. Hi, Dad.
So how did it go? Well, it was a train wreck. Not surprisingly, this ad didn't work and the sales continued downward. So what do you do when you have tried everything and it didn't work? Well, you innovate. That's what brands do. And you can almost see the story here, which was, this is right about the time I was arriving, that we'll make a product that has things in it. It'll be more exciting. It'll appeal to a younger audience. But what it does is it's really just a variety to the brand, and it settles down to eventually its sales where it will be, which is just as a variety, something that changes up, but it's not going to renovate your whole brand. And we weren't fooling anyone. So we went back to our basics. What do we know about ourselves? Well, we're in really good company. There are about only 3 things that Republicans and Democrats can agree on anymore, and that's puppies, Dolly Parton, and s'mores. How are we going to use s'mores to renovate our brand? We also took a look at what was going on in the social realm, and people still loved our brand, and it was relevant. I mean, heck, Lizzo showed up on the red carpet in a dress made from our wrapper. I mean, you can't get much more relevant than that. And we saw things on social feeds, which I'll run right here, where people were using our products in all sorts of new and different ways.
Don't know what you're saying. You're flying higher than a plane, and I'm not complaining. It's getting too loud, we'll figure it out. I'm out of my brain.
Now, doesn't that look delicious? So we took a look at our strategy. We went right back to our strategy and said, what are we doing wrong, and where can we, what's the heart of this brand? And I'm going to share a little bit with you about what we do when we work on our strategies at the Hershey Company. We use this 4-box system, and I want to show you how it works. First, we look at the human truth. And in the case of Hershey, we try to attach something that is truly true about humans, but also true about our brand. And in this case, we thought, humans really want to connect with one another, and they've done it since the beginning of time in order to survive. Cavemen got together in order to survive and hunt. We looked at our product, and there's something true about chocolate that you may not know. Chocolate is like wine, that when you eat it, it actually warms up your insides, and it opens up your heart to other people. In our category, it's an area that we dig too, and we realized this was really a big unlock for us, that so much of chocolate consumption was centered around personal indulgence, almost like a Calgon moment, that you go away, in your bedroom and you enjoy it, and satin sheets and all sorts of imagery like that abounds around chocolate. But we realized that the Hershey brand was all about being with other people, breaking off a piece and sharing it with someone else. So our category opportunity was from personal indulgence to meaningful connection. And in the culture, just as I said, it's never been more cold and cynical, and people were really genuinely craving human connection. So our strategy became Hershey melts every heart. And then we found our North Star, Bob. Bob was a 94-year-old man. He has passed away now. He came to our attention because of an article in Iowa Magazine that someone sent to us, but he really was our North Star for our entire campaign. This man went every day to his corner store. He bought 15 XL bars and walked around his town and handed them out. And he told us the reason he did it is because it never failed to put a smile on someone's face. And we made a commercial about him.
I'm truly amazed at the effect that it has on people.
Thank you, Mom. Give a little bit of my love to you.
And that was, as I said, really our North Star. And we realized that we wanted to really deepen our connection to people and the fact that we could connect people to one another. And so we made some ads about that. Here's one. So we really embraced our ability to connect people to one another. But then, pandemic, unfortunate timing. In fact, as the pandemic hit, we had ads in the can that were about influencers sharing bars, going out in real life and sharing instead of just sharing online, and then telling us how it made them feel. They were really terrific ads, and I'm hoping that one day we can use them. But what we did instead was we redoubled our efforts, and we tailored our messages to celebrate the people that we really, really, really got to know over the last 18 months, our families. And here are some of those spots.
Come on. It's me. Take one. All right.
And here's another. And another one.
Take a piece of chocolate if you're the tallest. Take a piece of chocolate if you're better at eating your vegetables. Take a piece of chocolate if you love sharing.
So in each of those cases, we had ads that we used real people and real families. It made it easier to shoot during the pandemic, but it had been our plan since we did the spot with Bob and realized how much people respond to real people. And when you think back to Bob, to dust off a brand and to create a new image, it's unlikely that you're going to use a 94-year-old. But in fact, he was a real person who really loved our product, and we knew that would shine through. Then we got to the holidays. Well, on your screen, many of you will recognize this spot. It is a beloved spot. I happen to hate it. I just got to be honest. It drives me crazy when I see it. It seems old-fashioned. It seems cold, and we wanted to update it. And love it or hate it, it got a lot of traction. Here's what we did. So Wall Street noticed and our share soared. There was a huge uptick in some more usage during the pandemic, and that really helped us. Of course, people were home. I'm not going to discount that, but we only have about 50% of the category, yet we grew tremendously during this time. We didn't stop with just renovating our look and feel, in TV commercials, online, etc. We took a look at our packaging as well. We wanted to change our design to bring our food forward. We've never shown our bar on the packaging before, and I think that our design team did a terrific job in bringing taste appeal, appetite appeal to our product. So much of our product is sold in C-stores and on impulse, and having the food forward is really important. And you probably noticed in the spots that we really updated all of our iconography. We had a new color palette that was warmer and more vibrant. And in all the spots, we have a mnemonic, even on most all of our social spots, where the bar unwraps. And that has worked extremely well for us. And guess what? I probably wouldn't be here today if I couldn't tell you a story where we won. Sales have soared. The pandemic has certainly helped, but we saw these starting well before the pandemic. And we take a look at our PR mentions. Well, impressions due to PR have always been good in candy. People love to write about candy. And again, going back to who we are, everybody loves candy. It's a subject everyone can agree on. But in fact, our PR mentions went from 16.8 billion in 2018 to 67.8 billion in 2020. That gives you an idea of how much more people were talking about our product. And I'm pretty sure that your social feeds blew up with some of these ads. But as a CMO, one of the most gratifying things that can happen is to see your company take it on. And I have to tell you, in all my career, and I've had a long career in this business, it has been so exciting to see my company, all of the backgrounds in the company, everything people are posting on Zoom has to do with heartwarming the world and about how we can how our chocolate is bringing people together. And that's our CEO, Michelle Buck, who's a wonderful leader, standing in front of a picture of the unwrapped bar. And it's pretty exciting when that happens. So what can you learn from this story? Well, you can't ignore 125 years of history. You just can't. You have to figure out what it is about that history that appeals to everybody. And it might not be the shiniest new penny. It might not be the hottest issue. It might just be something that's really in people's hearts. And that's what I learned about this. The when you want to do this, you really need to just be yourself, but maybe it's yourself on your best day. So this woman has having an awesome hair day, and this kid's eating a great s'more, but there's no chocolate on his face or on his lap. So I guess I'm going to say be yourself, but on your best day. And then I'll leave you with one thought, which is always, always show the food. Thanks. Okay, so there we
Hi,
go.
Jill.
Hi.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to keep Jill on stage as we introduce the moderator, Tyler Kelly, the president of Basis Technologies. Oh, okay. We have a
Are
few
we
minutes
too
before
early?
Tyler joins.
Sorry, I may have gone too fast.
No, that was great. I'd actually like to go over to our chat and see if there are any questions right now. All the feedback I'm seeing is just how amazing that was. So thank you so much. Let's see.
Well, I
Do
can
we
add a
have-
little bit while we have time. So one of the things I didn't say, because I probably just rushed through it, is that one of the things that we've done at Hershey is we've really tried to use all real people, not actors, and really reflect the real world in our ads. And I think you can see in all of those ads, those are all families, real families. And I think it makes a difference. So as we really embraced who we were, we also embraced what the world looked like. And that was a big part of bringing ourselves up to date. Sometimes you don't have to go to drastic methods. It's more about just showing the world how they really are.
That was wonderful. And yes, you can definitely see it in all the advertisements. We do have one question. How is Gen Z doing with candy sales?
Everyone seems to be eating a lot of candy. But yes, Gen Z, no different. I mean, there isn't really a difference there. They do eat some different candies, but you know, we sort of in our business say the last successful new product introduction was peanut M&Ms, which is like 30 years ago. So people like the candy they grew up on, and they continue to eat it.
Well, that's definitely familiar for me. So thank you so much. And we do have Tyler here joining. Again, Tyler is the president of Basis Technologies. And thank you, Tyler, for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought it was
It's
early.
okay. I think I
seems like
ended
I'm late.
early. I think I ended early, Tyler. Sorry.
So are we kicking off? I don't know how much time we have because I had this from 11:10 to 11:40, but just wanted to get a time check. Is that anyone from Brand Innovators?
I'm just going to jump back in. You have till about 11:30, but I'll definitely pop in if, and take any extra questions, but just feel free to get started.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jill. It was great to get to briefly meet you last week. And it sounds like you guys have kicked off a little bit around the Hershey story and where you guys are going. But, I don't know if you've kind of talked about, your beginnings and your history. So I was, hoping to share with the crowd, especially being a woman in marketing and advertising for a number of years, your story and how has that been throughout time?
Well, that was a nice way of saying that. I have been in this industry a really long time. It's very different than when I started. So I will say that. But my history is that I worked for Leo Burnett for 20 years. And then I went to the brand side. So first, for a while, I did my own consultancy. I came out of a planner background. I'd worked in client service at Leo Burnett for many years, and then switched to planning, which like no one did at the time. But I was much more of a planner than I really was a client service person. And I was always criticized in all of my reviews for being too generous with the creatives. That was my bad rap, was, something that I felt proud of. And then I went over to the client side at Kraft, and it couldn't have been a better teacher for me, and was wonderful experience. And it was a big learning experience. My boss, when I arrived, said, I'm going to give you a year to get to know our business. And I thought, that's insane. Like, what agency would ever give you a year to get to know a client? Never, right? And he was right. At about 10 months, I came out of my fog and realized what I was there for and what I was doing. And then Kraft split in half. I went, there was Mondelez and Kraft. They were one company and they split into two. Mondelez was the more global company, and I went that direction. Learned a ton about being in global businesses. Number one, how unimportant the US was and to growth. And that was really like to an American, like, really, we aren't important. And then I've ended up at Hershey, which is by far my most favorite job that I've ever had.
That's great. And then through that time, because this is, around women in the marketplace, how have you seen that coming from, early days to where we are today? And any thoughts and advice you give to the crowd?
Oh man, that could take hours. Well, I was the second woman to have a child and be at Leo Burnett. That just gives you an idea. And it wasn't that long ago, but it was a big deal. I forged a path of doing a job share with another account supervisor at the time, where we both worked 3 days. And so a lot's changed. I mean, it was very much a boys' club, and I can only say that it's changed for the better. Advice I can give, really, as I look back on it, and I think you and I talked about this, Tyler, is I wish, I started when women wore little bow ties to be like men. And I wish I had embraced long before I did just being myself and what my strengths were. Because the minute I did that, I brought who I really was to work, and exactly who I was, the more effective I became.
Which I think really parlays well into, I think, almost a transition from Mondelez into Hershey's, and then kind of where Hershey's is taking it. But, how was that transition? You and I briefly talked about just the two different styles, and I'd love to hear the approach you brought to Hershey's.
Well, Hershey's an interesting company, and most people don't know this, but and Hershey's very modest about it. But the 2/3 of the voting stock of Hershey goes to the Hershey Foundation, and so the money that we make, 2/3 of it goes to the Hershey Foundation. And while we care about our stock price very much, and we care about what the outside world thinks of us, where our money is going and what the Hershey Foundation does is Milton Hershey started in what was at the time called an orphanage, is now the Hershey School. And we educate about 2,000 kids, educate them, house them, clothe them, and even if they meet certain requirements during high school, send them to college. And it's an incredible school. The kids live in houses with house parents, and they really try to mimic having a family life. And there are so many children that have benefited from this over the years. And when you work at Hershey, you really feel it. Like, most of the people who come to Hershey come because of this, or at least it's a big deciding factor in it. And when we're sitting in our offices back before the pandemic, haven't been there in a long time, but we see the kids outside. You see them, you see homecoming, you see different things going on in town, and it's very meaningful to you. And I will tell you, having a purpose like that and working at a company that has a purpose like that, I find very fulfilling.
No, I definitely get it is. And how did that play into, the brand strategy, which it sounds like Hershey's really getting back to the roots and the tried and true. And I think owning, hopefully not being as modest, but owning their really strong, inclusive background.
Yes, I would agree. We really did go back to our roots, and we all, like, when you're in the building, there are pictures of Milton Hershey and all of his quotes around that are all about bringing happiness to people. And it sounds corny, but but it was just who we were and what was true about us. And we didn't need to be this, you know, brand new thing or break any rules. We just needed to be more of who we were.
No, it sounds like it's going great. And I love that idea, and I love the history that you've told me. And somebody put in the chat that didn't even know about the Hershey School, which I didn't either. It's just phenomenal to hear, especially in an age and time right now where we are trying to be more inclusive. But it also comes with, I think we've had some challenges, right? And you guys have faced some challenges. I'm curious, how do you do a supply chain now? Any issues there, especially coming into big holidays and balancing it out with your marketing campaigns? Is there a way that, or formula? How are you guys approaching that? Because I know it's been difficult.
Well, without giving away too much of the what's going on in the back room, we are having supply chain issues just like everyone else. We actually made a decision 2-3 months ago to make sure that we had enough Halloween candy. We actually cut back on some of our shipments to retailers. So you will see some shelves that aren't as full as they normally are. You might go to your C-store and see certain sizes missing or certain smaller brands missing. And that was a decision we took that, well, certainly we don't want to upset any of our retailers, any of our good customers, but we really didn't want to upset our consumers and the most important time of year for them, which was Halloween. So we wanted to make sure that all of our Halloween candy got made and on shelves for people to enjoy. So those are the kinds of decisions we've had to make. They aren't fun, and they do limit our, less product, less money. So it hasn't been easy. We've cut some marketing budgets in order to slow demand a bit because we are so responsive to advertising. So we've made some tough choices, but we are having slight supply chain problems just like the rest of the world.
And I don't know if this was asked before I got on the call, but with Halloween coming up in 12 days, what's the hot item? I mean, what is there, or is it always the tried and true? It's like, what do you guys see sell the most at Halloween? And is there something new that people should get excited about?
No, you should get excited to go get your candy before it's gone. That's what you should do. And for those people who give out full-size candy bars, really, you would need to go today if that's what you're doing. God bless you for giving out full-size candy bars. I love all of you, but you would need to go out today. No, we always do some new packaging, some new designs, some new things, but really it's that people just want to be able to supply, to give it to the kids who come to their door. I mean, but so do we really need to do all of those new products? We do it to get a lot of PR, to get the season going early. But the truth is people just want what they like and what they like to give out.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, to switch gears and a little bit, I was really excited to, one, get to meet you, Jill, and then two, to be able to talk to this entire group, because I thought one of the things you guys have done, and as you guys are moving forward within your marketing advertising campaigns, is you guys did kind of a, I don't want to say a pitch off, but it kind of pitch trial against, I know, just, some of the media channels. It, obviously made Ad Age. I thought it was a really exciting thing. So I'd love you to tell the audience kind of what the thought process was and how you actually completed it as a team to judge the finalists.
Well, so what we did, Tyler's right, was that in part of we put our media up for review. And as part of the media pitch, we gave each agency, the 3 finalists, a pot of money to go spend against, so that we could see how they would plan it and how they would execute it and what the results would be. And this wasn't to see who could buy it the cheapest at all. It was like to both test their abilities to build audiences and then how would they execute against those audiences. And it was a great exercise for that. But you know what else it was a great exercise for was the transparency, how they worked with us. And then midway through, they made adjustments, like people were optimizing midway through. And to see the sort of thinking behind the optimization was the strategic thinking behind the optimization was super interesting to us, and very compelling in our choice of who we picked also, which was Horizon Media. And of course, it's a honeymoon right now, but we've been very happy with our choice. And this all grew out of, though, a process that we had developed, an agile testing process, where we've been testing all sorts of media assumptions on 2-week intervals. This year we'll do over 80 tests. We'll execute over 80 tests. And the learning on those tests cause us to invest our money in new and different ways that are more efficient or effective.
Yeah. And then within that test, and I love that, usually we talked about this, the pitch, everybody brings their A team, and then all of a sudden you get the team, you don't know how they operate, and you actually got to see how they operate.
Right.
Did they all have to operate off the same platform, or could they use whatever platform they wanted to execute the media?
They could use whatever they wanted.
Gotcha.
And that was part of seeing their tools, seeing how they execute. And there wasn't a right or wrong answer. I want to say that too. It wasn't about, who could just bring it in the cheapest. It was, or who could get the most out of it. It was really to see how they worked.
Gotcha. And now that it's a great relationship, love to hear, coming from the agency side, moving into the brand side, how do you see those relationships as we move forward? How do you think the agency model, and how are they working well with brands, and how can they help you as you continue to move forward?
That's a really good question, Tyler. It's a hard question. The agency model is changing so much right now. And I think that the agencies that, relationships are still important, but I think bringing ideas to your brand partners is the thing that the creativity and ideas that you bring are what you have to sell. There's so many things that I developed an internal agency at Hershey that's doing a lot of work, especially a lot of our social work. But our agencies, who we value very, very much, and our two big agencies are Droga 5 and McGarry Bowen. And I really should give them credit in that presentation, because a lot of the thinking came from them and the ideas came from them. From McGarry Bowen in Hershey in particular. And what they have to bring to us is ideas, because when you're sitting at the brand, you're so focused on your brand and so internally directed, and especially when you're in somewhere like Hershey, Pennsylvania, to bring those outside ideas to your brand is the single most important thing you can do.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I agree. And then, what brought on having an in-house agency? What made you bring it more in-house?
Well, initially it was that we were really not getting great social creative out of our agencies. I arrived and a lot of the creative was just cut downs of, it's only 4 years ago, but were cut downs of video, commercials and 15-second commercials. And those were not working very well. And, really all of us knew it wasn't what we wanted to see in our feeds. And yet, I will say, our agencies continued to bring them to us. And we just decided we could do that work better. And at first, there were just a couple of us, and we just went to outside suppliers. I went to Tenor, which was ultimately bought by Google, but it's your GIF keyboard on your phone. And I thought, well, these GIFs, they already had GIFs in there using our products. People, eating a whole candy bar or having Skinny Pop raining down on their face over and over again. I thought that'll work better in our social feeds than these cut downs of commercials. And so that was the very first step into developing our own agency, was just buying those GIFs. And it was funny because Tenor, at the time I approached them, there was a small operation, and I said, could you just be our agency of record for one of our brands on social? I'd just like to, and they went, we're a media company. We sell the media of the GIF keyboard. And we made a deal where we would buy the media because that's what they wanted to show their investors, but they would do the creative for us.
Yeah, no, that's great. And from that social endeavor, Have you brought more in-house?
Oh yeah, we now do we do full range of agency activities in-house. But I mean, I say that we do it for our smaller brands. We do social for all of our brands except Hershey in-house. We do Heath, Rolo, several of our brands we actually produce commercials for. We self-produce commercials for them. All of our video assets, all of our baking assets, we all do in-house now. All of our e-com assets, et cetera. So really a huge part of our business is in-house, but we still very much rely on our agencies, on our big brands. So, because I just think it's so important to have that outside perspective and that quality, that level of quality that I have not yet achieved internally. And so Twizzler is done, out of house. Hershey, Reese's, Twizzler. We've done Jolly Rancher, and several other brands stay out of house for right now. I don't know if one day we'll get to that point, but I really don't think we will, because I think that outside perspective is just too important.
And I think there's just so many choices, right? How do you as an internal agency keep up with, the growing number of social channels, the growing number of, ways to execute media? I feel like there's new data companies every single day. There's all these different areas. How do you sift through that? Or is the team just trying to field calls and staying afloat?
Well, it's interesting. We work directly with the platforms a lot. So the platforms are happy to keep you updated on all of their latest stuff. And we do have two people who are our strategists, our social strategists who work in-house. And they keep us very up to date on it as well. Not to mention, don't we all use these platforms? So there's a lot of in-house knowledge on that, or the ability to get it. So isn't that so much for me, as keeping up part isn't so much for me. It is true ideas. Again, creativity and ideas. I just think that some of our partners, some of the very best creative minds, sit in ad agencies, and they should, because they get a lot more, they're fed a lot more stimulation. They're working on multiple clients there. And so the part that is harder for me to keep up on is sort of just what's culturally relevant, what's happening right now. Not so much those platforms, but like just how people feel about brands and what things look like. So trends, styles, colors, things like that I think really come from our agency partners. They're just much more attuned to that and feeling that than we are.
That's a great point. And one of the questions in the chat I noticed was, around pandemic, and how did that shift either your messaging, the platforms you're using, your media mix? Like, what has shifted during that time, and how has consumption been?
So the pandemic, there have been winners and losers in the pandemic, and chocolate is a big winner. People were using it to comfort themselves. It is something, if you aren't having dessert out of your house, having candy in your house was the alternative. So it has definitely helped our business, but it made some things a lot harder. Making commercials was way harder during a pandemic. We made all of our commercials. In fact, the first shoot that we'll have that people will be at will be in 2 weeks. Every single commercial we've made, and we've made over 100 commercials during the pandemic, have been done at a distance without our agency partners there or us. So that has been a real learning experience.
I'm sure. And how does that even work? I mean, what's, when you say it's a learning experience, I mean, are you just kind of watching from a video, or are you just they're just kind of checking you in on the progress?
Like this, you're watching from a video, but there are lots of challenges. It can be super frustrating when you want to say like, that I don't like, how she's positioned. It takes 20 minutes to get that message to the director, to whatever.
Yeah.
So it can be frustrating. On the other hand, we've developed some great partners on our Reese's brand, um, uh, who have been working on all of our Reese's spots. And we just have a shorthand now because we've had to get through this together.
Yeah.
And all of those spots are done tabletop, so it is easier. But we just have a constant feed and we're talking all the time. I can literally pin the camera on my Zoom screen and talk to them.
Yeah. You made a comment early on around how the US is not the center of the universe with candy consumption, even though we believe we are. Um, how do you approach international in this time as well? And how much is sold internationally versus here in the US?
So very little for Hershey. And honestly, it's been a fun transition for me because I went and worked for 4 years at Mondelez in global. And it's really hard to affect change globally. You have so many different stakeholders. Food is such a local product, the way people eat it, how it fits in their lives. It's really hard to do global campaigns around food. It is incredibly difficult. And I learned that from my 4 years. And after beating my head against the wall for 4 years, I was very happy to work in the US, primarily in the US. Things I learned. Well, food is local, and I think you really have to listen to the local people. Like, I just think this idea of coming in with your big ideas at the center and, oh, this is how, we're going to portray Hershey, it may not make sense, either because of the level of development of your brand in the market, because, different development levels, how people use it. Maybe they eat chocolate in the morning, not in the evening. I don't know, but you have to listen to all of that. It's just so important. I also learned a lot by marketing Cadbury, which was a Mondelez brand. And it does operate in several markets around the world. So it was interesting to have that chocolate education before I came to Hershey, even though in the US, Hershey owns the Cadbury license. So I am actually still marketing Cadbury during the holidays here, Cadbury eggs and stuff, here in the US.
Gotcha. And then as you were doing that, are there, when you're pulling this together, are you guys just running with global agencies so they can pull it all together and create kind of that push forward into international more, or do you find
Well,
local agencies usually when you work?
I find local agencies. Now, if you go back to my Mondelez career, I did Oreo around the world. There we had a global agency to sort of facilitate the transfer of knowledge and assets. And that was, at the time, I don't know who they're using now, FCB. And then the agency that developed Wonderfilled was the Martin Agency. And so Martin wasn't a company, an IPG company. I should have said IPG, not FCB, but IPG. And so they could connect with each other and share assets and share knowledge, because Martin did not have a global network at the time. So that was one way to do it, but I really think you've got to go. I personally, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but if I were to take a global job again and it was in food, I would very much listen to the local markets.
That's great. I know we're running out of time, and really wanted to kind of end more. Just you've had a great career, you've an amazing position now. It sounds like you've learned a lot. If you were to tell the audience, like, what's made you successful, and what's your kind of forward-thinking advice as we move into the future.
Oh, wow. Well, you're going to end with a hard one. What's made me successful? I love advertising. I just love it. And I am a hands-on marketer. Like, I go to shoot still. I love the food. I am, any agency who works with me knows this. Like, I care about all of the details, in particular, all of the production details. I care about my product, how it looks, no matter where it is. I just recently at work did this whole thing with ecom, and I said, you've got to care about how the food looks. It's just so important. So I I love the business and I love being in the business. I don't care about managing. I think I'm an okay manager and can manage big teams, but I think it's caring about the little details.
That's great.
Thank you both. Thank you, Jill and Tyler. That was a great double segment presentation.